We've just got some breaking news in from Buckingham Palace, folks. So this statement has just come in from Buckingham Palace, and I'll read it for you. It goes on to say, His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles, and...
14 seconds. That was all it took for a private message to detonate inside Buckingham Palace, turning a fragile royal standoff into something far more dangerous, a direct collision over Princess Diana's identity itself. And in that short window, everything shifted. Because this was never just about Meghan Markle asking to return. It was about a single forbidden phrase, Diana's royal successor, and the moment King Charles realized that Diana's memory was no longer being remembered, it was being positioned. The message arrived quietly, but its implications were anything but. Meghan Markle had not simply requested re-entry into royal life, she had constructed a pathway back through Windsor, through public appearances, through restored security, and anchored it all to Princess Diana's legacy. That wasn't symbolism, that was leverage. King Charles read the wording twice, then again, slower the third time, as if the phrase might change if he stared long enough. It didn't. The words stayed there, cold and deliberate. Diana's royal successor. In that moment, the king wasn't just dealing with a request, he was facing a direct challenge to both royal protocol and personal history. And before anyone could respond, one question took over the room. Who allowed this message to reach him? Because this wasn't supposed to happen. That title had already been buried quietly, deliberately, and permanently. It had been banned from negotiations, from official language, from any attempt to connect a living figure to Diana's symbolic position. Yet here it was, resurfacing not as a suggestion, but as a central claim. And that changed everything. Meghan Markle wasn't asking to participate. She was defining herself as the continuation of something the monarchy had sworn could never be transferred. And King Charles understood immediately what that meant. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. This was a fight over ownership of memory. The reaction inside the palace was instant, but controlled. King Charles didn't shout. He didn't slam the table. Instead, he removed his glasses, placed them down beside the document, and fixed his attention on the aide in front of him. His voice was quiet, but absolute. That title will not enter this family. That wasn't a rejection, it was a line drawn in stone. But even as the order was given, the situation escalated again. Because Charles didn't just want the request denied. He wanted it traced. Every hand, every step, every person who had allowed those words to move from Meghan Markle's proposal into the palace itself. And that's when suspicion entered the room. Because if the wording had reached the king, someone inside the system had allowed it. And suddenly, this wasn't just about Meghan Markle. It was about internal alignment. Had Prince Harry approved the phrase? Had Meghan acted independently? Or worse, had someone inside the royal household supported her framing? The moment that question surfaced, the tone shifted completely. This was no longer an external challenge. It was a potential internal fracture. Before any official response could even be drafted, the exact wording reached Prince William, and his reaction was immediate. He read the phrase once, closed the file, and asked to speak to King Charles directly. Because for William, this wasn't about protocol. It was personal. Charles had rejected the phrase as a monarch, but William was about to confront it as Diana's son. And that distinction mattered more than anything else in that moment. Because behind that one forbidden title were three completely different interpretations of the same woman. King Charles saw Diana through the lens of history, a marriage that had ended in public collapse, a chapter marked by judgment, pressure, and regret. Prince William saw something else entirely, a mother, not a symbol, whose name had already been used, interpreted, and reshaped too many times. And Meghan Markle? She saw Diana as proof. Proof of survival. Proof of resistance. Proof that the institution could isolate and break those who challenged it. When those three interpretations collided, the argument changed. It wasn't about whether Meghan could return. It became about who had the right to define Diana at all. And that's where the real pressure began. Because every mention of Diana reopened something unresolved inside the monarchy itself. For King Charles, it wasn't just institutional, it was deeply personal. Every reference brought back questions that had never fully disappeared. Love, betrayal, responsibility, regret, and now, those same questions were being pulled into a negotiation over access, security, and status. Meghan's proposal wasn't just strategic, it was emotional pressure applied at the exact point the monarchy could least afford to ignore. But Meghan Markle saw it differently. To her, the comparison wasn't manipulation, it was recognition. She believed she had lived through the same isolation, the same scrutiny, the same institutional resistance that Diana had faced. And in her view, the title wasn't a claim of identity. It was an acknowledgement of parallel experience. But inside the palace, that distinction didn't hold. Because to King Charles, the wording didn't sound like recognition. It sounded like transformation turning suffering into authority and memory into negotiation power. Prince William's reaction only intensified that divide. When he read the phrase, something shifted immediately. He dismissed the aide, closed the door, and stayed alone for several minutes. Because this wasn't about public optics. It was about a boundary he had already drawn long ago. In his view, Diana's legacy wasn't something to be continued, it was something to be protected. Not by the institution, not by Meghan, not even by the royal family itself. It existed outside all of them. And the moment someone tried to step into that role, it stopped being memory and became position. Meanwhile, Prince Harry stood at the center of the most dangerous conflict of all. He understood Meghan's perspective. He had witnessed the pressure, the headlines, the isolation. He had seen the parallels. But he also knew exactly how William would react to that comparison being formalized into a title. And that created a fracture that couldn't be easily resolved. Because defending Meghan now risked appearing as if he was allowing Diana's identity to be used as leverage. And rejecting the phrase risked abandoning the very comparison he had defended for years. Then Camilla entered the equation, but not publicly. In a private conversation, she warned King Charles against reacting too quickly. Not out of sympathy, but strategy. Because a harsh rejection, she suggested, could elevate the title itself, turning it from a rejected phrase into a symbol of resistance. But even that warning couldn't slow the momentum, because by then, William was already moving. And Meghan Markle had no idea that both men, King Charles and Prince William, were approaching the same boundary from completely different directions. And what made the situation even more explosive was this. The phrase hadn't appeared suddenly. It had been building. Months earlier, during a private planning meeting at Kensington Palace, the same idea had surfaced quietly, cautiously, but clearly enough to trigger a reaction that would set everything in motion. That meeting wasn't public. There were no cameras, no statements, no headlines. But it became the origin point of everything that followed. Because it was there inside that closed room that Meghan Markle first positioned herself in relation to Diana's legacy. And it was there that Prince William stopped it, before the sentence could even be finished. But stopping it once hadn't ended it. It had only forced it underground. And now, months later, it had returned stronger, clearer, and impossible to ignore. And this time, it wasn't being suggested. It was being used. The atmosphere inside Kensington Palace changed the instant Prince William interrupted the discussion. Meghan Markle had entered that earlier planning meeting believing a Diana Memorial initiative could become the bridge back toward the royal family. The initiative focused on homelessness, mental health, and vulnerable children, the very causes that had defined Princess Diana's public image, and that Meghan believed matched the humanitarian projects she and Prince Harry had pursued. But William saw something completely different unfolding before his eyes. He understood better than anyone that Diana's name possessed extraordinary emotional power. Once someone was officially presented as continuing that legacy, public sympathy, media attention, and royal influence would naturally follow. To him, this was no longer about charitable work. It was the beginning of a struggle over who would define Diana's place in history. The room reached its breaking point when a senior courtier began reading Meghan's written proposal aloud. The official calmly described Meghan as a possible modern continuation of Diana's compassionate mission. Before the sentence could even finish, William placed his hand firmly on the table and stopped the reading. His response was immediate and unmistakable. No living member of the royal family, not Meghan, not Catherine, not even Diana's own sons, would ever be presented as her successor. Those words stunned everyone present, because they revealed something much deeper than palace protocol. William was not protecting a constitutional rule. He was protecting his mother's identity from becoming something that could be inherited, marketed, negotiated, or awarded. For Meghan, however, the rejection carried an entirely different meaning. She believed the palace had no difficulty using Diana's image whenever it strengthened the monarchy, yet refused to allow anyone whose experiences resembled Diana's to publicly acknowledge that connection. Prince Harry later listened as Meghan described the meeting in a private conversation, insisting the institution feared comparisons because they created influence beyond royal control. Harry understood her frustration, but he also knew exactly why William had reacted so strongly. Both brothers had spent nearly 3 decades watching Diana's memory become the center of documentaries, interviews, books, debates, and public campaigns. Harry could sympathize with Meghan's feelings without ignoring the emotional boundary William believed could never be crossed. King Charles responded shortly afterward by approving a written restriction that prohibited phrases including Diana's successor, Diana's heir, and the new Diana from appearing in official negotiations, ceremonial descriptions, invitations, or royal programs. It was intended to settle the issue permanently behind closed doors. Instead, months later, Meghan's private proposal repeated the very wording that had already been rejected. The old disagreement instantly became a far more dangerous confrontation, because Charles now viewed the phrase not as misunderstanding, but as a direct challenge to a decision he had personally authorized. What had once been a quiet internal disagreement was about to explode into a face-to-face battle involving King Charles, Prince William, Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, Windsor, Kensington Palace, Princess Diana's legacy, royal status, security arrangements, and the future of any possible return to royal life. When King Charles finally agreed to a restricted private meeting with Meghan, the conversation carried only one central question. Had she deliberately revived the forbidden title knowing exactly what it represented? Meghan insisted the phrase symbolized survival, courage, and resistance against the same institutional pressures Princess Diana had faced. Charles refused to accept that explanation. To him, suffering did not create succession, and emotional similarities could never justify claiming a position connected to Diana's public identity. As both sides defended completely different versions of the same history, it became obvious that neither protocol nor reconciliation could bridge the gap. Instead of opening the palace doors, the forbidden title had forced every unresolved wound back into the center of the royal family, setting the stage for an even more devastating confrontation that neither side could any longer avoid.